So for a lot of homeowners, hearing the words declutter your home is like fingernails on a chalkboard. And you might be in a situation where you want to declutter, but you don't have the time, or you just don't know where to start, or you don't consider it clutter. You know exactly where everything is, but you're trying to get your house ready to go on the market and you've been told you got to get rid of some of your stuff. Either way, the process of reducing what you have in your home, especially if you've been in the house for a while, is not easy. So in this video, I wanted to go room by room, give you some pointers on where to start. What items should you declutter first? And then give you some tips on how to get that decluttering train to finally leave the station. But first, I want to give you a few fun facts. Did you know that about 25% of people with two-car garages don't have room to park cars inside them due to clutter, and 32% only have room for one vehicle? The average 10-year-old owns 238 toys, but only plays with about 12 daily. The U.S. has over 50,000 storage facilities, more than Starbucks, McDonald's, and Subway restaurants combined, and approximately 1 in 11 Americans rents a storage unit. And finally, research suggests that excessive clutter can increase stress, reduce productivity, and is linked to higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol. All of this because we have too much stuff. Now, the process of decluttering will be a little different if you are living in the house. Maybe you want some more organization. You want to make some space. Maybe you got some stuff that's been kicking around for a while that you need to let go of, or maybe make room for more stuff versus getting the house ready to go on the market, where you really need to decrease the amount of stuff that's in the house to make it more appealing to home buyers as they're coming through the front door. But there's a rule that you can follow to kind of help you in either scenario, and that's called the 50% rule. So what that means is you need to reduce the amount of items in a given space by half. Yes, you heard me correctly, half. It sounds aggressive and excessive. I completely understand. But if you really look at what you have in your home, we have a lot of items that are duplicates, that are expired, that haven't been used, haven't been touched in a year, 2 years. There's a lot of items in our home that don't need to be there, and they can easily be taken out of that space, creating less clutter. So one of the things you want to look at is you want to look at what your daily use items are, what your occasional use items are. Now, this is going to be super important when we look at prepping your house for sale. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later in the video, but you want to really look at all those items under the kitchen sink, under the bathroom sink, down in the laundry room, in your closet, and say, do I really need to be holding on to this stuff? And chances are 50% of it you don't need to hold on to. And if you're getting your home ready to go on the market, this is a huge part of that process. When the buyers come in through the front door, if there's less clutter, there's less distractions. And in fact, HomeLight did a survey recently that said that decluttering could add an additional 3 to 5% to your sale price. And who doesn't want a little bit extra money in your pocket? So we're going to go room by room and give you some tips on each room of where to start so we can get that decluttering train to leave the station. Now, I'm excited to announce that I've put together a decluttering guide. It has all the content from this video plus additional resources. It has an extended version of the decluttering checklist with items that I don't mention in this video, plus a few extra bonuses. So if you're interested in that download, it is available for purchase in the description. Just click the link and fill out the short form, and that'll get sent right over to you. Now, the first room we're going to start in is the kitchen. Now, kitchens and bathrooms typically need the most amount of decluttering. It's where we spend most of our time. And in the kitchen, I want you to look at appliances. How many countertop appliances do you have? Now, if you are getting the house ready to go on the market, I want you to clear out about 80% of what you have on your countertops. You want to clear it out. And is it going to be inconvenient? Yes, it's not going to be convenient. I'm sorry. But what I typically do is I tell people if you have appliances that you use on a regular basis on the daily, and maybe you have 3 or 4 of them, and you have a kind of limited counter space, you get a tote. and have that tote ready so that when you're getting ready to have people come in the house, you put those appliances, put those items in a tote. Tote goes in the closet or in a basement if you have one. And then when they are gone, they can come back out. Have it so that it is presentable as possible when you have people in your house. Now, if you are not getting your house ready for a market, you still probably need to eliminate a lot of what you have. A lot of people have appliances that maybe you had intentions of using, that egg cooker that you bought that I thought was a good idea at the time that maybe you've used once and haven't used in 2-3 months. I would put it away or maybe sell it, get rid of it. But look at the appliances that you have. You want to clear as much of that counter space. The other thing that you want to look at is your tech cables, chargers, cell phone chargers, iPad chargers. That stuff takes up a lot of real estate on your countertops and it creates a lot of clutter. Now you can put that stuff in a drawer. You can have retractable cables. I'll put a link in the description of a cute gadget, a really neat gadget I have in my kitchen counter that actually the cable, you pull it out and then it retracts. So you have no messy cables on your countertop. There's a lot of neat things out there that will eliminate that clutter, but you really want to look at what tech clutter you have on the countertop. The other thing that I want you to look at is decorations. Now, again, if you are looking to sell the house, you're going to want to minimize that stuff. You want to have a few tasteful, 1 or 2. The goal when you're putting your house on the market is that you don't want it to be a distraction. It needs to be an accent. Accent so the place the space does not feel sterile, but not a distraction, not so much so that that's all buyer sees when they walk into the kitchen. Now, if you're not selling, yes, you can have decorations, but don't have it be overwhelming. You don't need, if you have an open space at the top of your cabinets, it doesn't need to be chock full of every doodad and whatnot, filling up that space. That does create clutter. So your tech, your appliances, your decorations, you want to take a look at those. And then lastly, again, if you're looking to sell, you want to take all that stuff off the front of the refrigerator. That in itself is a huge distraction and a clutter. Your grocery list, your family pictures, all the different things that, your real estate agent sends you, magnetic calendars and all the things. Get rid of it. Take it all down, put it in a box, save it for the next house, but you want to get it off the front of the fridge. Now, moving on to the bathroom, the same applies with decorations. You want to reduce it by at least 50%. You don't need a lot of decorations in the bathroom. A small potted plant on the vanity countertop is fine. You don't need a lot. It's too much of a distraction. You also want to put away makeup, toiletries, hairbrushes, toothbrushes. Now, if you are living in the home, that's a different story. You may want to have a toothbrush holder and so forth, but when you're putting the house on the market, you're probably going to want to have, again, a tote. You can see this is a common thread. Temporary, inconvenient, but you won't have to do it. It's only until you sell the house. And the better you can make the house look, the quicker it'll sell and the quicker you can get through the inconvenience. So all of those items, you want to put them in the vanity or have them in a tote, but you don't want to have them on the countertop. Take a look in the shower as well. Buyers do open shower doors, shower curtains to see what the condition of the shower is, a tiled shower and so on and so forth. If you have a collection of hair products, you probably want to go through those and get rid of some of those bottles, decrease that to a respectable amount. Take a look, but that's not an uncommon issue. I see that all the time going into homes where you say, well, there's only 2 people living here. Why are there 10 bottles of shampoo? No idea. but you want to take a look at that and decrease wherever possible. Now, moving on to the living room, you want to take a look at how many decorative items you have, how many family photos you have, how many books you have on your bookshelf. If you have an extensive book collection, you want to reduce that, you guessed it, by 50%. And this is where it differs if you're living in the property versus getting the house ready to go on the market. If you're living in the property and say, I want all those books, then fantastic. Maybe you need to decrease the decorative items instead and start packing things away and deciding what do you really need to hold on to, what needs to be displayed, what can you pack up maybe for another day. But if you're getting the house ready to go on the market, the more items, the more personal items that you have in a living room, the more of a distraction it's going to be to a buyer. because the goal is always, when you have your house on the market, the goal is to get that buyer to see themselves living there. You want them to be able to envision themselves sitting by the fireplace, reading a book, watching TV, having friends over. And if they are distracted by all of your photos, you have collections, maybe a Star Wars collection, which would be awesome, by the way, but having it there and all they can see is the Star Wars collection, and they don't get a chance to appreciate the hardwood floors. They don't appreciate the oversized windows. It's going to be a distraction. And that's not what you're trying to do. You're not selling the Star Wars collection. Maybe separately you will eventually, but not with the home sale. You want to sell the house. So anything that might be a distraction, do you have to reduce everything? No. And you may not, it may be more than 50%. It may be 75%, but do you have to be 100% move the Star Wars collection out, move out the family photos, take everything down, make it look sterile? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You want to have a little character. You want it to feel homey when the buyers come in, but you need to pare it down so that's not overwhelming. So taking those things, packing them away, maybe you get rid of them, maybe you hold on to them, but packing them away to create more space is huge. Now, one question I get a ton is about furniture in the living room, placement, how much. And when I'm walking through that home with the homeowner and giving them advice on staging when we're getting the house ready to go on the market, we will talk about which pieces of furniture should probably be removed, put in the basement, put in storage, or maybe the furniture just needs to be moved so it makes it more open, more inviting to a home buyer. And leaning on your trusted advisor, leaning on a good agent that knows what buyers are looking for, what entices a buyer, who knows the market in your area, is crucial. And, I've said this before on this channel quite often that I strongly recommend that you interview at least 3 agents, that you lean into, the questions. I have put out videos about how to interview agents, the questions that you should ask. You need to go through that process to vet those agents out, because it's hard to know whether you're working with what I call a 20% agent versus an 80% agent. Where 80% of the agents in the real estate industry are not going to give you good advice on staging. They're not going to necessarily know what to tell you. They just want to get the house sold so they can get paid. And those are not the people that you want to, those are not the ones that you want to hire. And they're not the ones you want to give your hard-earned money to. So 20% agents, who you want to work with, not easy to find. And that's why I, on a regular basis, refer out of my own network. I have a built network of agents that I've vetted myself that meet my standards, and I can connect you with one of those agents. So if you're interested, you need an additional agent to interview to get your goal of 3 agents. There's a link in the description. Click that link. I'll get in touch with you. I've got a bunch of questions to ask you to make sure I can get you with the right agent, not just any agent, and get you in touch with that agent and go through that interview process. And then you'll be able to have your pick to make sure you get the right agent on your side to give you that right advice on how furniture placement in your house should look so you can get your house sold quickly and for the most amount of money. Now, speaking of furniture, I want to move on to the bedroom. And bedrooms often have furniture in them. I see this all the time. Chairs, sitting chairs, depending on how big the bedroom is. Bedrooms have become much bigger over the last 20 years. And if you have too much furniture, that's a drawback. So you want to really look at the space, the flow around your dresser, your bed, and see how much walking area you have. And you may want to pare down the amount of furniture that you have in that room. The other area that you should focus on in terms of decluttering is going to be the closet. And this is going to be, it's a catch-all. It is in my house. I go through once a year. I have to go through a purge in my closet because you either have clothes that you haven't worn in over a year, clothes that don't fit anymore, clothes that you're like, I'm going to fit into that same size I was when I was 18. I'm going to hold on to it someday. No, we need to let that go. Let that go. Release that one back to somebody else. Donate it to Goodwill. They'll get more use out of it than you will. Let it go. But keep in mind that when you're decluttering, yes, the closet can be a catch-all and holding things that you don't need to hold on to. And every time you go in it, you're like, causing stress. But it's also a place where buyers will look. Buyers will open the closets not to be nosy, but they want to see how much space is there so they can envision their own stuff. If they have a lot of furniture, if they have a lot of clothing, I mean, not furniture, but if they have a lot of clothing that needs to go into these closets, and the closets are small or they look small, that could be a turnoff. And I've seen people walk through a home and say, you know what, I love this house, but the closets are too small. It's not big enough for all our stuff. What are we going to do with all our stuff when we move in? So decluttering that closet, getting rid of things that you haven't worn in a while, things that you really don't need to be holding on to. And then if there are things that you don't want to get rid of, maybe you have an extensive dress collection, suit collection. You're like, you know what, it fits me. I love clothes. I love wearing them, all the things. Then you may want to consider, a temporary wardrobe in the basement, storage, climate controlled storage. You don't have, moisture issues and so forth. But if you are looking to, either way, if you're not going to sell, you could, create a wardrobe in another space of the house, or pack it up. Pack it up, because you're going to have to pack it anyways because you're moving. So pack it up ahead of time, reduce it by half, and you'll be surprised, you'll be shocked how much stress that relieves when it comes to the closets. Now, moving on to the garage. Now, if you don't park in the garage, 25% of the people don't, and you have it full of stuff, you probably have a ton to purge and a ton to donate. My suggestion is, when you are in a situation, if you're in a situation where you're getting the house ready to go on the market, the number one rule is make sure there's no tripping hazards. Make sure there's a safe way to walk around the garage. Because if you are getting ready to move, oftentimes that's where people are going to store their stuff. If you're going to pack it and take clutter out of the kitchen and clutter the bathrooms and stuff out of the closet, oftentimes it goes in the garage, and that's fine. Having boxes stacked neatly labeled and off to the side is totally fine. You want to make sure that it's safe to walk through the garage and there's no tripping hazards. But on the flip side, if you're decluttering for the sake of decluttering, I can almost guarantee you that, again, 50% of the stuff that's in that garage you don't need. All the extra stuff that we collect that we might need someday. All the cardboard boxes from Amazon, that we don't need 50 cardboard boxes unless you're selling something and shipping something on a regular basis. You probably don't need them all. So making that decision to let that stuff go, donate it, get rid of it, it'll be freeing for you. But allowing yourself to go through that garage and get rid of some of that stuff is going to be a huge help. Now, there are a few items that you want to look at in general across the entire home. Now, I've already mentioned this item once in the kitchen, and that's your tech. You want to look at how many charging cables, charging stations, bricks you have, those charging bricks. You have them all over the house. You may have them next to the sofa. You may have them in the bathroom. You may have them in the garage, in the bedroom. And that stuff in itself can be unruly on how many you have throughout the house. And you want to ask yourself, do you really need all of those charging stations all over the place? And then is there a better alternative? Putting those in a drawer instead of just hanging out on the end table, it might be a better option for you. But you want to look and see, because that stuff can overtake the house, the amount of tech we have these days. The other thing that you'll want to pay attention to is if you have pets. Now, again, if you're looking, this is particularly pertains to putting the house on the market, but if you have pets and you have either a dog pen or you have, food dishes or pet toys, all of that stuff, you really need to put that in a different location when you're having people come through your house. That is, number one, a distraction. Number two, you don't want somebody accidentally kicking a cat bowl when they're walking through the kitchen. Doesn't really work. It's not really a great thing to happen. So you want to pay attention to the amount of pet toys, the amount of pet items you have. The other thing is kids toys. The average kid has 238 toys. Crazy. That's mind-blowing to me, honestly. But if you have kids and they have 238 toys and they're spread all over the house, you've got some toys in their room, you've got toys in the living room, you've got toys in the playroom, toys in the basement maybe, you need to condense that. There's no need to have that many, to be honest. I question what happened to the days when a cardboard box was fun. Back in my day, the cardboard box was more fun than the toy that it came in. But nowadays, it's just the way it is. And these kids' toys have smaller and smaller parts, and they're everywhere. And they can take over a house. And that in itself can be distracting, because the reality of it is the more toys they have, the more toys that get spread out, the less the kids even realize that they have them. And now these toys are taking up space, they're creating clutter, and the kids aren't even playing with them. So pay attention to how many toys you have spread out, whether it be kids, grandkids, have them in condensed. I'm a big fan, as I mentioned earlier, of totes. Even if you're not selling, I like having everything in a tote. Everything goes in the tote, the cover goes off. If the kids want to play with it, the cover comes off, they play with the toys. It keeps everything condensed. And let me tell you, my two kids, when they were young, it was good for my mental state to not be tripping over Legos every 2 seconds. Now, I want to give you a few tips on actually how to implement that 50% rule. And my first tip is to focus on one room at a time. Don't look at the entire house. It'll become overwhelming, and you'll put it off to the next weekend, and the next weekend, and the next thing you know, 5 years has gone by. You want to focus on one room. Think about that one room, what needs to happen in that room. When you're done with that room, move on to the next. And the second tip is when you're thinking about that one room, you're going to divide everything into 3 categories. You're either going to keep it, you're going to donate it, or you're going to trash it. One of those 3 things is going to happen. If it's something you're going to keep, great. Then you're going to either decide, well, I'm going to leave it where it is, or I'm going to pack it away. If you don't need it and it's not worth anything, then great. In the trash it goes. Don't look back. And then if it's worthwhile, if it's something that is still usable, has value to someone, donate it. Let somebody else get some use out of it. It's better to do it, give it away, to donate it, than have it sit on the shelf unused. Another tip would be to get some totes. Now, I've mentioned this throughout the video. I'm a big fan of totes, if you haven't noticed. I like getting the totes and then labeling the totes. It makes it easy to keep everything into one space, especially if those totes contain all similar type items. But especially if you are getting ready to move, makes your life so much easier to have everything organized in those totes, ready to go. When you get into the new house, now you know where everything is. And if you don't unpack it right away, that's okay. But get yourself a good selection. You want the bigger sizes, get the smaller sizes, and a bunch of different selections. There's so much on Amazon nowadays. You can get your pick. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg, but get yourself some totes. You'll be glad you did. Now, if you're struggling with making decisions on things, you don't know whether you should keep it, whether you should donate it, whether you should just get rid of it entirely, put that aside. Put it in a separate tote. Decide on a different day. Now, especially if you are getting the house ready to go on the market, you don't want to take too much time with this process. You don't want to take too much time purging. And I see this happen a lot where people start decluttering to get the house ready to go on the market. And what bottlenecks the process is purging at the same time. Now, if you can move through that process pretty quickly, great. But oftentimes it's better just to put it in a tote. If you're at that point where you have a deadline and the house needs to go on the market, put it in a tote and either tackle it while the house is on the market or wait until you move and be done with it. And yes, logically, does it make sense? And would it be easier to not take it with you? Absolutely. But if you have time pressures, it's better to do that than prematurely get rid of something than you regret getting rid of it or donating it to someone. You say, I wish I had held on to it a little bit longer. So don't make a decision. Take that pressure off yourself, put it in a separate tote, label the tote, need to review, and then you can review it on another day. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have created a decluttering guide. All of this information is in the guide, plus some additional resources, some additional checklists. Now, it's available for purchase. You can click the link in the description. Getting your house ready to go on the market or just decluttering in general is oftentimes very stressful. And it is inconvenient, especially if you are putting things in totes that you really want to be out on the kitchen countertop. But know that it's temporary. This process only happens for a limited amount of time. And when you're on the other side, you'll feel the sweet relief that you can actually breathe a little bit easier, that you're going to have a lot less clutter, a lot less stress in your home. Now, if you want more information on decluttering, you're going to want to check out this video. I'm Sylvester, and I'm here to help you be a savvy home seller.